Atlantic currents propel Native Americans to the Canary Islands and all that is east. In the former video we saw that the Atlantic currents helped propel Native Americans, including their mummification practices, polygonal wall building, knowledge and techniques regarding navigation and rich symbolism, to places like the Canary Islands, as well as all the facades to the east, which includes Africa, Europe, Western Eurasia, Middle East, etc. The full gyres, of which these Atlantic currents are part of, also propel them back to the Americas, whenever there would have been made use of them. Note: among many other small and large animals, also whales and turtles made and still constantly migrate riding these never-ending gyres. And there is clear evidence and even plenty of archaeological evidence that even the ancient megalithic builders hunted them on both sides of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Similar migrations, expeditions, and population turnover events take place in the opposite direction, departing from the Americas to Africa from the American west coast and through the Pacific currents. Austronesian expansion. Ancestral Native Americans are most closely related to ancient Paleo-Siberians and ancient Beringians. What is described first is the consensus viewpoint of this particular part of human history. Ancestral Native Americans are most closely related to ancient Paleo-Siberians and ancient Beringians. Native Americans or the Amerindians have also been described as similar to primarily East Asian ancestry, with a smaller similarity with Paleolithic West Eurasian populations, via their ancient North Eurasian component, which has been described as the result of a Paleolithic admixture between ancient West Eurasians and ancient East Eurasians. Genetic studies also determined Amerindian-like gene flow from the Americas into Siberia, contributing some ancestry to local Siberian populations. Ancestral markers, 3 population tests, prove the direction from the Americas to the rest of the world. The above case is a special case, but still can be seen as an east or from the Americas to the west or to Asia and all the way further to Africa, flux. Apart from all ancestral markers, 3 population tests. Executed by statistical geneticist David Reich, the direction from the Americas to the rest of the world is made clear. This in a nutshell. By the way, these directions, paths or routes are perfectly in line with the dominant ocean currents. This while key parts of consensus hypotheses make claims opposite these well-known, well-studied and well-mapped dominant ocean currents. Dominant ocean currents are studied, etc., for their obvious importance in navigation, also in modern navigation. The currents and the Guanches carried mitochondrial Eve to Africa and the East. The Guanches carried mitochondrial lineages including mtDNA L3b1a that are common across West Eurasia and on North Africa, which was the reach of Neanderthal, as well as of haplotype B006, that both carried it hundreds of thousands of years before mitochondrial Eve, which is wrongly supposed to be an African Eve, with mitochondrial Eve being of African origin remains until today a bold claim that was never found proof or confirmation of. Instead, mitochondrial Eve DNA was carried hundreds of thousands of years earlier by Neanderthals that are proven to be the first line after our ancestors, and of American origin. We are all aware that the Neanderthals later spread to roughly all of the world, but with the striking exception of Africa. Proving that especially in the case of Africa, mitochondrial Eve DNA was not carried there by Neanderthals, but obviously directly from and by humans the Neanderthals provingly descended from. This bold claim is proven by the for ancestry essential, but seldomly mentioned, whole genome studies across the world as well as the consequent haplotype tree. By the way, mtDNA L3b1a also became dominant in sub-Saharan Africa, and consequently the main component of mitochondrial Eve, or the wrongly supposed African Eve. Atlantic currents propel males to the Canary Islands and to all that is east. What is described first is the consensus viewpoint of this particular part of human history. The 3 males from whom haplogroup-defining Y chromosome SNPs were retrieved carried the E1b1b1b1a1, EM183, haplotype. This haplogroup is more common across modern North African populations, and particularly common in Berber-speaking populations of North Africa. By generating the first autosomal genetic data from these populations, we can conclusively demonstrate that the Guanches were most closely related to modern North Africans of Berber ancestry than to any other population we included for comparisons, supporting previous studies but adding more detail and nuance, said first author Dr. Ricardo Rodrigues Varela, a researcher at Stockholm University. This study gives us a fascinating insight into this unique population, and we're delighted to see our collections being used to make such an important contribution to research, said co-author Professor Tom Gillingwater, from the University of Edinburgh. Surprisingly, one Guanche individual carried a greater proportion of hunter-gatherer-like ancestry than the other individuals, possibly suggesting low-level gene flow from a European source that predates the European conquest. This type of genetic ancestry was introduced to Europe from Anatolia with migrating farmers during the Neolithic expansion around 7,000 years ago. Other North African populations have varying proportions of this ancestry, but it is not yet fully understood how and when it spread across North Africa, said co-author Professor Anders Gotherstrom of Stockholm University. The scientists were also able to provide new insights to the genetic legacy of the Guanches in modern Canary Islanders. Our analyses show that modern inhabitants of Gran Canaria inherited circa 16 to 31% of their genomic ancestry from the Guanches, said co-author Dr. Torsten Gunther, from Uppsala University. Early migrations of Guanche soon to be turned over by R1b. What was discussed in the former chapter were early, Guanche, Y-DNA-E, and mtDNA-L, and a few later, Y-DNA-R1b and mtDNA-X, migrations and crossings. The later and thus more recent migrations and population turnover events, this time with full focus this time not on Africa and the Mediterranean, but on the more to the North European facades, this also for strategical reasons, would definitively turn over and replace these early Y-DNA and mtDNA haplogroups first, and especially in Europe and in Western Eurasia. New departures and destinations no later than 8,000 years ago. This new focus starts out no later than 8,000 years ago, and its arrival in Europe and Western Eurasia is detected by ancient DNA research. David Reich, 2021. It involves Y-DNA R1a and R1b, and also the somewhat older Y-DNA-I. When you look on their maps you see these make use of more northern islands, including modern-day Iceland and the United Kingdom, especially Scotland and Orkney. So we can expect that the haplogroups we call the early haplogroups, including those of the Guanche and their mummies, especially those in the mid-Atlantic islands, like also the Azores, are largely older than 8,000 years.